Without further ado, it's my great pleasure to introduce the Ohio Valley Conference Commissioner, Beth DeBauche.
Well, thank you, Mark, for that nice introduction, and thank you, Dr. Bell, for being here this evening, and a sincere thank you to all of you for being involved in this evening's activities. It's a real honor and privilege for me to be here with you this evening for two reasons. When I was a younger woman working at the National Collegiate Athletic Association, I had an opportunity to serve as a staff liaison for Dr. Murphy. Dr. Murphy was the chair of the Women's Basketball Issues Committee. And I was always amazed by her leadership ability, the way she could bring people together, and she was not afraid to confront a difficult issue, but she did it with grace and style. So to have an opportunity to be part of the program that she endowed is really quite a treat for me. More importantly, though, it really is a privilege for me to serve as your commissioner. Now, I am very, very lucky to have the job that I have, but one of the aspects of my job that I'm not quite as fond of, as commissioner, I don't get to interact quite as often as I would like with student athletes. So it's a real treat for me to be here with you and spend time with you tonight. Now, I can talk to you for the time that we have together about my experiences and views on leadership, but I'd really like an opportunity to hear from you. So I hope that during the course of the evening, we can enter into a conversation and really talk about some leadership issues that you confront as a student athlete, and talk about some career opportunities that you have available to you as you look to your future. What I thought I would do, but I can take this in any real direction you would like, is to spend a few minutes talking to you about my background. It's not that I'm particularly interesting or have this bizarre path to get to where I am today, but I think there are some themes in what I've gone through in my life as a female wanting to aspire to a leadership role that you can take some messages back from that experience that may help you as you're looking forward to making some decisions about your future and as you continue your career as a student athlete and as a student here at Tennessee Tech. Spend some time with you then talking about what does a commissioner do? I come out to campus and you may see me and I might have a medal for you. I hope I have medals for each and every one of you during the course of your career and a trophy or two. But what else do we do in the conference office? You know you're a member of the Ohio Valley Conference, but what in the heck are those folks in Brentwood doing on your behalf? So we can talk a little bit about that. I'd like to spend a good bit of time talking with you about the experiences you have as a student athlete, how those experiences can translate into leadership opportunities here for you on campus, and also as you pursue whatever direction you want to go as an adult and a professional. And then lastly, there are a few lessons learned that, gosh, if you'll indulge me, I think you might get a kick out of hearing. So if that works, let's go ahead and get started. You can tell by the voice, I'm not from Cookeville originally. I was born in Green Bay, Wisconsin, which is a relatively small town, about 100,000 people, but certainly a town where sports plays a very important role. I worked for the Green Bay Packers when I was in high school. My dad was a coach and I was a high school student athlete. So while sports didn't define me, it certainly has always been part of my life. And I learned living in Green Bay just how absolutely important sports and athletics activities can be to a sense of community and to a sense of self. And that's something that I've carried with me and I appreciate to this day in my role serving as commissioner. From Green Bay, when it was time to make a college decision, I went to school in South Bend, Indiana. I went to St. Mary's College where I had a history and government degree. And I'm old enough that at the time I was at St. Mary's, we didn't even have a lot of sport teams. So St. Mary's and Notre Dame, which are located next to one another, we had just a club golf team. So I was involved in getting that started, but I never was a varsity student athlete. So it's not obvious that I'd be here before you in this role. Similar to Green Bay, though, South Bend, again, was another small town, but sport and intercollegiate athletics certainly played a big role. So I took that experience, as part of my overall sense of self as well. That sports, that sense of success, doing things the right way, and being associated with an athletics program is very, very important to a number of people, be they student athletes or just fans. It's part of who we are in American culture. I was fortunate to grow up in a family that valued education and the liberal arts education. So at the time I was set to graduate from St. Mary's, I didn't have a clear vision as to what the next step was going to be. And I share that with you because I trust there are so many of you in this room that know exactly what the next step was going to look like. But my guess is there are others that are saying, good gracious, I know that graduation is coming down the pike, but I'm not quite certain what the next step ends up being. Well, I'm certainly proof positive that good things can happen if you keep an open mind and you're open to opportunities that can come your way. I stayed in South Bend and I got a master's degree in communications and a law degree from the University of Notre Dame. And when I graduated from law school, I moved to Atlanta. While I was in Atlanta, I practiced law, and I was a divorce lawyer of all things. Now, if you can be a divorce lawyer, I tell you what, a good day being a divorce lawyer isn't anything to compare to even a bad day doing what you do with another job. That's a hard way to make a living, but I learned some valuable lessons involved with that type of work. And while I was in Atlanta, what's important to this story is I ended up not staying with divorce law, and I clerked for a judge. He was a man of integrity, and he nominated me for a leadership program. As part of that leadership program, I met a man who was an assistant athletics director at Georgia Tech. Now, at the time, I thought he was ancient. I thought he was so old, so wise, and had so much wisdom. Now, in hindsight, I think he was 2 or 3 years older than I was. He was probably 29, and I was probably 26 or 27. But he took some time and said to me, gosh, Beth, you are so interested in intercollegiate athletics. Why don't you pursue a career in sport? Why don't you look at working for a college athletics department? And he took it upon himself to take that time. He sat down with me and helped me. And I tell you that because the fact that this man took a few minutes for me and was really encouraging changed the absolute course of my life in terms of my profession. It didn't take a lot of work on his behalf. He absolutely enjoyed trying to help me. And it can take nothing away from what I have to say today. Know that people genuinely want to help you as you make career decisions, as you make life decisions. People want to be encouraging. People really get a sense of satisfaction out of seeing you grow, succeed, and achieve your dreams. And to this day, I'm still friends with this man who works in our profession and is a colleague of Mark's and is still very, very helpful to me on the career path. He suggested I apply for a job, and I applied for a job as an assistant athletics director at Vanderbilt. Now, at the time, I wasn't anywhere near qualified for that job, but I wasn't bright enough to know that I wasn't qualified. So God works in mysterious ways. It was the absolute right thing to apply for that job and not let self-doubt get in the way. If I had been 5 or 10 years older and a little bit more experienced in the work world, I would have focused on what I didn't know and how I wasn't qualified. But at the time I was eager, and I knew I had talent, and I knew I had confidence, so I applied for this job. And the athletics director said to me, you know, kid, I'm going to take a chance on you, so make me proud. And he hired me for this job, and the fact that I knew he had confidence in me gave me the confidence to really strive and succeed. So I share that with you, and that as you look at things, don't limit yourself. Be realistic about your talents and your skills, but go after your dreams and go after opportunities that are available to you. Ask for help, and as Mark said, good gracious, I'd be more than delighted to help you as you're thinking through issues and career decisions and just life lesson type issues learned, but others would as well. So take advantage of those resources that you have available to you, and don't let your own doubts limit what you can do. Again, you need to be realistic, but have confidence in what you've learned, and whether it's in the classroom or as a student athlete here at Tennessee Tech or in your life prior to coming to Tennessee Tech and with your family. You have an awful lot to contribute. You have an awful lot of skills that can translate if you have the confidence and the dedication and the hard work, and are willing to give the hard work to succeed. So from Vanderbilt, I had the good fortune to interface with a gentleman by the name of Roy Kramer. Roy Kramer was the commissioner of the Southeastern Conference, and at the time was, I would say, realistically, one of the absolute most powerful men in intercollegiate athletics. And he came to see me to see if I wanted to come work for the Southeastern Conference in Birmingham, Alabama. So please take no offense. I trust there are folks in this room from Alabama or from Birmingham, and it is a lovely city. But as a Yankee who hadn't spent much time in the Deep South, the thought of moving to Birmingham was just absolutely daunting. When he came to see me, I remember saying to my secretary, "Don't worry, I'm not going to move. That's not going to happen." Well, after I talked to him and I realized what a charismatic person he was and just what a powerful leader he was, I thought, gosh, Beth, this is an opportunity you just can't pass up. So I ended up going to work for Roy Kramer, and I worked for him for 8 years. I was able to see a just tremendous leader in action. He was this former football coach, so kind of a grizzly personality, and not someone that you'd warm up to like a teddy bear, but he had a genuine heart, and he had strong convictions, and he was very principled. So he was able to lead in his role in intercollegiate athletics with a sense of vision. He had a passion for intercollegiate athletics, and he loved student athletes. And that was at his core from the decision-making process. So I got to see how his principles very much directed the course that he set our conference on and the course that he tried to set intercollegiate athletics on nationally. I still consider him a mentor to me to this day and a good friend, and I'm grateful to have him in my life. He retired after I worked for him for 8 years, and he came to me and he said, "You know, Beth, you've done what you can do in this role at the Southeastern Conference," which is really a gracious leader to be able to take time with his staff to encourage me to look at something else. And he suggested that I apply for a job at the NCAA, working for an individual that he admired for his sense of integrity. In this role, I would be working with university presidents and athletics administrators. Mark was one of the administrators that was involved with the council in helping to set policy on behalf of Division I intercollegiate athletics. I was fortunate to get the job, and where it becomes pertinent to this story is Mr. Kramer's focus and concern in working and work for people of integrity. It was very much true. I worked for a man by the name of David Burst, who had worked for the NCAA for about 30 years. He had been the vice president of enforcement. So as you can imagine, that's not a job where you make a lot of friends, when you're looking for violations in intercollegiate athletics and putting schools on probation. But what he is a very honest individual who can really cut to the quick and tell you what you need to hear, whether it's positive or negative. He's going to be honest with you. So he had earned the credibility of his peers, and I saw firsthand how important it was to have the credibility of your peers. I worked then with the presidents and the leaders of Division I to see them enact policy on your behalf, be it academic reform or reform relative to enforcement, and just to see where the direction of Division I was going to go. And what I could see in that room with 18 presidents strong, like Dr. Bell is strong through the OVC, presidents that really have a sense of vision. And what I was able to witness is there's no cookie cutter approach to leadership. Of the 18 presidents, they all had different styles. But what I was able to witness is it wasn't necessarily the person in the room that was the most dramatic or was willing to make a speech on every single issue that could come face Division I. But with folks in the room that were very thoughtful, that came to meetings prepared, that picked their battles, that discussed issues relative to their principles, and that had earned the trust of their colleagues, that were the true impactful leaders in the room. And so for 8 years, I got to witness the best and brightest, and I hope I was able to take a bit of their leadership experiences back to what I do in my profession now, working on your behalf for the OVC. Now, 2 years ago, there was an opening that my boss noted for me in the paper at the Ohio Valley Conference. And he said, "You wouldn't be interested in that, would you, Beth?" And I thought, well, gosh, yes, that's an absolute wonderful job. But if I'm completely candid, as a female, and I didn't listen to what I just told you, I had a sense of doubt. As a female, would I get any consideration for a job as a commissioner? There were very few commissioners at the Division I level that have been females, and at the time, there were only 3 females serving as commissioners. So I thought about it. I need to apply. I absolutely need to do this for myself. And I went forward and I submitted the application. Remember my boss saying to me, I want to make sure that you may be surprised that even 2 years ago we had this conversation. He said, I want to make sure, and I'm going to talk to the headhunting firm that's working with this, that they're not just interviewing a female for the sake of interviewing a female. But what it tells you about the Ohio Valley Conference and the Board of Presidents that leads this conference and the Board of Athletics Directors that help lead and manage this conference is that I wasn't just a name on a list to say females would be interviewed. Obviously, they gave me a chance and they gave me a strong look to be able to lead and really hopefully provide for a better experience for you in your role as a student athlete. I share all this with you in that if I had not gotten over my own personal doubt and my worry that being a female may impact my selection, I had a good job and I was happy, but I wouldn't have had the wonderful opportunity that I've had for the past 2 years. So I feel very blessed for all the encouragement that I've gotten, and I'm grateful to the Board of Presidents and the athletics administrators for really looking beyond the fact that my gender didn't matter. And I can tell you on a day-to-day basis, it doesn't matter. My job is to lead this conference. Whether I'm a female or a male has absolutely nothing to do with that. That we all have the skills to be able to move this league forward. So it's been a fun ride. It's been a good ride. It's been a busy 2 years. And I just can't wait to get started and try to do more on behalf of the conference. At the NCAA, I had positional power, or positional leadership power, as a result of my role working in Division I. I also had personal power because I had credibility. I knew the Division I issues. I was one of the few people in the country that talked about issues, that talked about policy, that worked with the Division I presidents and athletics directors. So the combination of having positional power and personal power allowed me to be able to affect change at the national setting. Coming here to the Ohio Valley Conference, by virtue of my title as commissioner, I have positional power, but I have to earn the personal power and the personal respect. That's a process that needs to unfold, and that's a process that I'm involved with right now. And as a female, that's something I suggest that you be mindful of. You have to have both your professional role and responsibility, but you also have to have your personal competence and the relationships that you establish to have credibility and truly be impactful in your job. I have to, in order to be a good leader on behalf of the OVC, I need to develop relationships with the variety of constituent groups that we have in the conference. I have to establish trust so they know that, gosh, if you tell me something, if you have a vision on an issue, that I'll be able to treat it appropriately, with confidentiality, and really have respect for a variety of different opinions. I have to have a vision to be able to share and articulate. I have to be able to communicate that vision to our administrators and our various constituent groups. So that doesn't come overnight. I would tell you it probably takes at least 2 years to be able to develop the necessary personal relationships and to know enough about the conference, about the people that make up the conference, to really be impactful, to be able to move the league forward with an agenda and a vision that I would like to see the league working with our various constituent groups and working with the president take into hold. So that's something, as we talk through the night, what do you need to do to have a personal sense of leadership that allows you to be impactful. So that's a lot of information about my background, but I hope that it helps you appreciate that if you're in this room and you're trying to figure out what's the next step or where this career is going to go, you have lots of options available to you and lots of opportunities are going to present themselves if you just leave yourself open to those opportunities moving forward. Now, from a commissioner standpoint, like I said, you probably see me here passing out trophies or at a game to cheer you on. I was here on Saturday for the football game. I'm so very proud of Tennessee Tech, not only to win a football OVC championship, which is terrific. How many years has it been, Mark? 36. So that's quite an accomplishment. And to be able to host a game in the playoffs. Again, a wonderful representative of the OVC. Now, I know the outcome wasn't exactly what everybody wanted, but I know that's just part of the process. That just gives us more incentive to want for more success next year moving forward, and it's a good step. And again, very, very proud that the OVC could be represented by Tennessee Tech and have the home game. But sure is showing up at your athletics events and cheering you on, which I love to do, and being able to pass out trophies. And what do you think the commissioner does? Anybody have any thoughts? There you go, scheduling. Our conference office, we have 9 individuals that work on your behalf in the OVC office. We handle your schedules for the majority of your sports, developing schedules, and right now we are adding a school. We've added Belmont, so there's 12-member institutions in the Ohio Valley Conference, so we're working on some schedules, and that requires a lot of interface with coaches, administrators, to build a schedule that's fair and equitable for your sports programs. Any other thought besides schedules? Well, as part of my role, I work for the university presidents. I work for the 12 presidents on the OVC Board of Presidents and helping to set the course and vision for the conference. I work with the athletics administrators, again, in setting policy, having a course and vision, and helping to manage intercollegiate athletics on behalf of the OVC. So we work with our athletics directors, our senior women administrators. We work with our faculty groups. Do y'all know who your faculty athletic representative is? Show of hands if you know who your FAR ends with. One. Well, Dr. Jeff Roberts serves as your faculty athletic representative. You're very well represented. And he is charged with being able to really serve as an outside voice to protect the academic integrity of your student athlete experience, to work with Dr. Bell to give advice on academic policy relative to intercollegiate athletics, to be your voice nationally with regard to academic issues, and to work with Mr. Wilson and the rest of the administration to make sure that there's a sense of balance in your student-athlete experience. So I will, in our office, we'll work with your faculty athletic rep, we'll work with our student-athlete advisory committee, we'll work with the governance groups to try to create policy on behalf of the league. We will try to set academic policy on behalf of the OVC. We'll have rules compliance efforts, so we make sure that there's a sense of integrity moving forward in the Ohio Valley Conference. We have a governance structure so we can share communication. Part of our role in the conference office is to create a sense of family between the 11 schools. You can be competitive, and you should be competitive on the playing fields and on the courts. But within our office, we want to create a homogeneous sense to respect the competition, but to make sure that we get along and work very well together. So that's part of our role as well. And then, and this would require a great deal of leadership in and of itself, we're responsible for officiating programs. So when there's a good call, good for us. When there's a bad call, our phone knows how to ring. So we're involved in that responsibility as well. It's a busy day every day, and every day looks a little bit different than the last, which makes it fun. But we always try to stay focused on your student-athlete experience, so that's what truly makes it rewarding. I'll give you an example of what a conference office would be involved in, and it may help illustrate how leadership skills end up being important to how we interface in the conference office. I'll use an example that impacted Tennessee Tech. But impacted the conference as a whole. Within the Ohio Valley Conference, we play double headers in basketball, meaning men's and women's basketball games were held on the same day, basically back to back next to one another. Here at Tennessee Tech, you have a good following for both men's and women's basketball, and somewhat of a separate fan base. Now we have some basketball players here, Within our league, though, not all institutions had a separate following for women's basketball. And that was somewhat disheartening to see women's basketball players starting a contest with very few fans in attendance. And as their game progressed, have more fans attend who actually were on their way, sometimes coming to the men's games, sometimes coming for the women's games. But what we were failing to do in some instances, and again, this is the culture at Tennessee Tech, is we're building a separate fan base for our women's basketball student athletes. We also heard nationally that there was a trend and a concern that to be equitable to female student athletes, that we really needed to incent and grow participation and fan support for women's basketball, independent for men's basketball. So as a league, we discussed with the various constituent groups, did it make sense to separate out men's games and women's games? Now, if you think about it, who would we need to talk to as we're dealing with that issue? It impacts the university presidents and chancellors want to come to the games for both sports, want to participate, want to demonstrate leadership on behalf of both men's and women's athletics. It impacts our athletics administrators for, gosh, they have to worry about staffing, media coverage, fan support. It impacts the coaches. My heavens, they want to make sure that they have the best environment for the student athletes. More importantly, it impacts our student athletes. Is it the right thing? You want to have fan support. You want to be in a good environment that makes you thrive. It impacts our fan base, many of whom were very comfortable with the fact that we had the doubleheaders as part of our culture. It impacts us nationally in terms of recruiting. The OVC being one of the few conferences that still had doubleheaders, and we had other leagues using that phrase against us. Oh, the OVC doesn't care about women's basketball. They still have doubleheaders. Now, you know that's not true, but that was being used against us. So in this role out of the conference and working with our administrators, we had to touch base with the various constituent groups, get all that feedback, and make decisions and develop a policy and offer advice. Part of my role would be to offer advice to the presidents to ultimately make a determination on behalf of the league. It was a hard decision on behalf of the league because there are going to be some difficulties and there are going to be some bumps in the road probably before this policy is established. But ultimately, the determination relative to responsibilities for Title IX and growing a fan base for the totality of the Ohio Valley Conference relative to women's basketball seemed like it was the right decision on behalf of the league. So at first blush, when you talk to a fan or I get a phone call saying, who in the world made that dumb decision? You realize all the different steps that were made and all the different points in which we try to be responsible in making a decision on behalf of this league and on behalf of our student athletes. So it requires being open to listening to other ideas, making sure that we're respectful of the different perspectives, and trying to lead and have a vision as to what the future of women's basketball can be on behalf of the Ohio Valley Conference. So that's just a small example of what an issue would be that our office would deal with and where we'd want to demonstrate leadership and advice and direction, and ultimately the president's providing the leadership on behalf of this league. So that gives you a sense of what conference life is like. As a female in this role, as I said, at the time I was hired, I made the fourth in the list of 31 Division I conference commissioners. There had been 9 female commissioners overall in history. I was the first for the Ohio Valley Conference. So again, much credit that they were willing to step out and make that decision. And I take that as quite an honor and quite a responsibility as well, appreciating that fact. There are a few challenges and bumps in the road, I'm sure, for all of us. There's some differences with female leadership styles. My first football game at Jacksonville, I thought, gosh, I'm the commissioner, I'll get all stiffed up for this, and I'm going to really be an impressive young woman. So I wore my high heel shoes and I brought my big Queen Elizabeth purse. Not probably the best thing to do when you're going to a football game. I walked out on the field and my high heels got stuck in the turf. So lessons learned, and I didn't know what to do with my handbag, and I threw it at the president of Jacksonville State. So again, lessons learned as a female that I guess you just have to look back and laugh. I've since learned to lower the shoes and get rid of the handbag. But seriously, as a female, my leadership style is to be very inclusive, to ask a lot of questions, to seek a lot of information. And sometimes I worry that that may be perceived as not being certain about a decision or really being indecisive. And it's really not that. It's more that I'm looking to find information and to gather as many resources as I can to help our office make a good decision, to help our governance groups make a good decision. So I think that may be something as a female from a leadership standpoint that I need to be attentive to the fact as to how that translates. And as a conference, I'm sure there's been some learning curves in that working with me. The style to want to really get as much information as possible. I am guilty as a female, and I'll share this with you, and not necessarily recommend it, and I need to break this habit, but I think it's typical of asking questions to try to elicit a response. And oftentimes I'll know the answer, but I want other people to come to that conclusion rather than just come out and say where I want to go or what the direction is. And then I might get frustrated if somebody actually answers the question. And my boss at the NCAA used to laugh at me and say, geez, Beth, you know the answer to that. Just tell them flat out where you want to go and what you want to do. Don't beat around the bush. So that's an old habit that I've gotten into as a female, that if you find yourself in that pattern, appreciate what you're doing and being able to move forward from there. So there's been some learning curves, but it's been a fun process and it's helped me grow as a professional. Now you, as a student athlete, have the most wonderful leadership environment to be a part of. You have the best leadership training you could ask for someone your age moving forward. Every day, your interface with your teams and with your coaches and with your fan base allows you to experience leadership opportunities that your peers just aren't able to experience. So please appreciate that and seize that opportunity and take the most advantage you can. And thinking about coming here, I looked at some work that I had in the office from John Maxwell about leadership, and I looked at some of the tenets that he stressed, and I thought, my good gracious, that's you to a T. Good leaders have to have character, have to have a sense of honesty, and build that sense of honesty so that they can really move, whether it's a team forward or whether it's a league forward or a business forward. You have to be trusted by the people that you work with. Think of your own team experience, of the folks on your team. You know what it's like to have team chemistry. You know that you have to rely on people, that you have to have a sense of trust with people, and that once that sense of trust is lost, that you can't be as impactful as a team. So you live this every single day, and you know that your credibility is so very important. And once your credibility is lost, it's hard to get that back. I shared with you, one of my challenges is I need to have the relationships. I need to build the trust with the athletics administrators, with the presidents, that they know that when they talk to me, when they share an opinion, that I'm going to be trustworthy and that I'm going to be credible with the information that I provide them. As a leader, you need to be enthusiastic. You need to have passion for what you're doing. Student athletes, by your very nature, I know you have a passion for what you're doing. You love being a student. You love being involved with your sport. Don't be embarrassed by having that enthusiasm. Don't let that enthusiasm diminish because you think you need to tone it down, or that's part of the next step in your maturation process. So that's who you are. You're blessed to have that level of passion and enthusiasm. So think of your own teams. If your coach were comfortable saying, oh, let's be okay tonight, or try to play a good game, that's great. You wouldn't have the same enthusiasm for what you do. You need to have that passion, and I know that you do. How else would you get up so early in the morning to go to practice, to be involved, to have the late nights when you come in off a bus trip? That's who you are. That's already part of your DNA, and you're going to carry that forward as a professional, and that's going to be an asset that you have that some of the peers that you'll be working with and competing with don't have. So take that with you as a sense of confidence that that's going to help you succeed. You need confidence in order to be a leader. You have to believe in what you're doing. Can you imagine being part of a sport team, whatever your team? What team are you on? Volleyball. Can you imagine approaching a contest thinking, oh gosh, there's no way we can win tonight? You don't. That's just not the way you approach your contests. That's not the way you approach your seasons. You believe that you will be successful. You're confident in your own ability, and you have to carry that forward. I work with the presidents and the athletics directors, and we have a new initiative, and I'm really excited about it. We're trying to enhance the web streaming on behalf of the Ohio Valley Conference, so we can show your games on the internet and show it to your friends and family for free, so they can just click on our website starting next year and see a wonderful OVC competition. If I weren't confident that that were the right decision, and I thought, well, it might be okay, I'm not sure if it's a good thing, there's no way that our athletics directors would have been comfortable making that investment in our future, or our presidents. We have to be confident that we're moving forward in the right direction, and that's certainly part of who you are. As I shared with you, from a sports standpoint, long ago, I played a good bit of golf, and I don't know, do we have any golfers? When you think about it, lining up a putt, it sure as heck makes it a lot easier when you're confident in your ability to make the putt. That hole gets awfully big. When you're doubting yourself, all of a sudden it's, oh, good gracious me. So you see it every day in your sports activities, that confidence is absolutely essential to be a leader and to have success on your team. Now you also need to be realistic about who you are. You need to have a sense of both your strengths and weaknesses. As a player, if you know you're a good defender and it's the end of the game and your teammate is absolutely a great shot, chances are it's probably better to get an assist, make sure that the person who's a great shot gets the ball, makes a shot, and that the team wins, and that it isn't necessarily diminishes your role at all. It's the fact that you appreciate your strengths and your weaknesses, you accentuate your strengths, you work on your weaknesses, but you allow your teammates to support you and enhance your weaknesses. On our staff, again, we have 9 people. I don't have a TV background. I know a lot of people that work in TV, but I personally didn't do a lot of work in TV. We have a gentleman on our staff by the name of Brad Walker who does a lot of work in the TV area. So I need to rely on him to get good information. I work very hard to get additional information with regard to TV coverage, but we need to work as a team, and I need to let him teach me and be our strength in the office with regard to TV, and appreciate the fact that I have more to learn. So again, it's just having a better sense of self. We all have weaknesses, accepting them and working around them, learning, getting better, and then playing to your strengths. We need to be dedicated and focused on what we're doing. And to me, this says nothing more than student athletes. Neon sign. As student athletes, by gosh, you are focused, you are dedicated. You get up early, you stay late, you have bus trips, you have busy hours. You know from your own experience that probably in season, you may do even better in the classroom than you do out of season because you have that sense of focus and dedication. As a leader, you need to stay focused and keep your eye directed on what you're trying to achieve and the area that you're trying to go in. And that will come to you naturally because that's really who you are. You need to be committed to excellence. Again, I think that's second nature for student athletes. You expect nothing but the best. And as a leader, people rise to your expectations. Again, if Mark said, it's okay, it's kind of Tech, just does okay in the sports realm. And if some of our student athletes graduate and some of them don't, gosh, you can't even imagine him saying something like that. He's committed to excellence on behalf of the school, and because he is, everybody on his staff and part of the community expects nothing but the best with regard to Tennessee Tech athletics. Dr. Bell expects you to do the best in the classroom and represent this university and really get the most out of your experience. Again, you rise to that same level of expectation. And clearly, I'm looking at the coaches in the back of the room. I absolutely have no doubt they expect nothing but excellence from you and want to help you achieve that sense of excellence. As a leader, you need to be generous. You need to be generous with your time. You need to be generous with your teammates. You need to have the confidence to let other people shine. And that's something I think you learn with time, but as a student athlete, you've had an opportunity to learn that already. I think within the sports culture, you don't want to be perceived of as the person whose first assist is their only assist. You want to be the teammate that's really there to be supportive. If we're honest about it, a win is what we're all striving for on the athletics field, and it really doesn't matter if you're the star. When it's all said and done, you want to be part of a winning experience. So it's about the team, it's about the cooperation, and it's about allowing everyone to thrive. From a staff standpoint, again, if our staff, no one hires me to be a star. No one cares how I am front and center to the issue. The presidents and the administrators hired me to get a job done. They want our staff to support the job. They want the entire Ohio Valley Conference team to support our success. So it's not about me in this role. It's not about the individual roles. It's about the collective whole and letting people grow. And I think you learn that with time, but again, you're going to have a leg up on everyone else because you've been part of teams and you've seen that already. It's really just about being gracious and thoughtful to your teammates and really getting to know your teammates. You need to know the people that you're working with. You need to get a sense of who they are. You can't be an impactful leader if you don't really know who you're working with. You think of your own team experience. You didn't have a relationship with your teammates. You didn't necessarily like your teammates. You didn't know something about their individual personalities, what made them tick, what made them happy. It would be hard to have a really good team chemistry. So it's important to build those relationships. It's important to listen. I could have come into the OVC and had all kinds of plans about what we were going to do as a conference. But if I don't know anything about the conference, it's really hard to be able to lead and have a sense of direction. It's my responsibility to listen to you. What do we need to do better as a league? It's my responsibility to listen to the presidents and the athletics directors and get their perspective on what this league needs, and then take all that information and try to move that forward relative to our vision. So you all need to be good listeners, and I know that as a sports team, you already have those skills that you're very adept at listening and hearing what people say and the small nuances of what people say. You have to be a good communicator, though. If you could have the most passion in the world towards what you're doing, but if you can't articulate it and get people enthused, it's kind of hard to be a good leader. So you need to focus not only on listening, but also being able to articulate your viewpoint. And you need to be responsible for your actions. You know better than anybody else. You don't want anybody on your team that's going to pass the buck. You know when you have a good game. You know when you don't have a good game. You can't sugarcoat it. It's the truth. In your heart, you know what it is. And you know that you lose credibility when you go ahead and pass the buck on an issue. Take responsibility. The last thing I could do as a leader within our office is to pass the buck to our staff. If something went wrong in the conference, to say, oh gosh, I didn't know, so-and-so on the staff did that. I'm placed in this role. It's my responsibility to make sure that the office and the conference runs appropriately, and nobody really cares about who did what. It's about getting it right and doing the right job. So it's really about taking responsibility for what we're doing. And above all, as a leader, it's really focusing on the whole. It's focusing on others. It's rarely all about us. Sometimes we're all guilty of thinking, oh, it's about us or somebody's focused on what we're doing. But the truth of the matter is it's about the team, it's about the result, and it's about doing good on behalf of whatever passion we have. So you are set as a student athlete to have so many of those skills already, whether it's the confidence, the teamwork, communication, the listening, the being generous with your time and contributing, being focused on excellence. Think of all those themes. It's what you do as a student athlete every day. If you have that, and you have that moving forward, you should have all the confidence in the world to know that you can tackle your dreams and ambitions and be as successful at that as you are at being a student athlete at Tennessee Tech. Now, gosh, in terms of advice, what have I learned over the past umpteen years serving in a role, working as a woman in intercollegiate athletics? Shared this with you earlier. First and foremost, don't sell yourself short. Have confidence in yourself, be realistic about your talents, but really have the confidence that you can achieve what you want to achieve if you have the vision to be able to dream it. Take time to really know who you are. Find out where your passion lies. Find out really where your principles are. And as you make decisions, focus on your heart. In your heart, you do the right thing. You know where your values are, and you'll be responsible for those values. And if you stay true to those values, when it gets tough, you'll make the right decision. It's easy to want to be a pleaser. It's easy for us to want to bring a smile to everyone's face and to be able to please everybody. But if you think back to the example I gave towards women's basketball and moving from the doubleheaders, simple example. It may be the right thing, and you may feel it's the right decision, but can we please everybody with that decision? Absolutely not. There are people that are very unhappy with that decision and think it's a mistake. But again, we made it for decisions to ultimately grow the sport of women's basketball and think we're doing the right thing long term. So again, you have to accept the fact that you can't please people all the time, but you need to be sure that you're being true to your convictions moving forward. Lastly, I would suggest you really be your authentic self. You know, I'm probably the only Division I, not probably, I am the only Division I commissioner that has a ponytail. But you know what? That's part of who I am umpteen years later, and you know, it's just part of who it is. So it may be a very simple example, but it's the authentic self. I don't want to change. I want to be optimistic. I want to be enthusiastic. I want to be the biggest cheerleader for the OVC and have the greatest sense of vision and have the best dream on behalf of this conference that I can. And it may sound hokey and it may sound Pollyanna-ish, but that's who I am and that's what I want to bring to this. So I say to you, be authentic, be who you are, and don't be embarrassed about it, and stay true to your convictions. And again, you are set for absolutely a terrific and exciting ride for the remainder of your time here at Tennessee Tech, but for what the future holds, be it any career choice or any avocation that you choose. So I thank you for the opportunity to talk to you about leadership, and then I just open it up. If there are any questions about the league, if there are any questions just about what it's like to serve in this role, I'm more than happy to entertain those questions to the best that I'm able.
One of the things we always talk about so much is championships and what that means for the student athlete experience. We can talk about that.
Part of our responsibility within, and I apologize, so thank you, Mark. Part of our responsibility in the office is to manage championships on behalf of the Ohio Valley Conference. We are responsible for the sports administration, working with your coaches. We have annual coaches calls and meetings from a philosophical standpoint to set the course for the sport, and then try to manage the championships in a way that you can have a uniform, positive championships experience on behalf of the Ohio Valley Conference representing your institution. For many of you, that will be the pinnacle of your athletics career. So we have a responsibility, an absolute responsibility to give you the best experience possible within that championship setting. So we spend a lot of time within the office and working with our athletics administrators to try to discuss what would be the best championships experience. But within that process, we need your feedback. You have opportunities to complete surveys and provide us with some sense of guidance as to what you like as part of that overall championships experience. And we definitely need to hear that, because at its core, the championships are about you and the good experience that you'll have. And again, if there's any comments right now, I'm more than happy to hear about your overall championships experience. Any questions or thoughts? Hi, Dr. Bell.
Beth, you work with schools in a lot of different states. We're similar in many ways, and yet we also each are unique. And there's a unique group of presidents, all of whom have bring a little bit of ego to the table that you have to deal with. Talk about the challenges of dealing with these multiple constituencies that all come down on you at some point.
A couple weeks ago, we had an opportunity to deal with a somewhat difficult situation within the league. And to Dr. Bell's point of reference, the presidents were very engaged in that discussion. I mentioned to you earlier the importance of having a sense of honesty and integrity and credibility that you need to establish with the presidents. I tried very hard as we worked with all the presidents to be fair, to listen to everyone's opinions, and to be honest about the reaction to those opinions. Not to sugarcoat, not to say to people what they wanted to hear, but to truthfully respond as to where we were with the decision-making process. And it's easy to talk about. When you're living it, it's a hard situation. You know that strong-willed people want certain results and expect certain behavior. And it's a matter of really staying true to your conviction, not being afraid to articulate your opinion, but also appreciate the value of everyone's opinion in the process, but being candid and honest and not trying to sugarcoat any of the description as to what's going on. It could be very easy in a role like this to be able to talk to one constituent group and say, oh gosh, you're right, that's exactly where we need to be, and to turn around and talk to another constituent group and want to say, oh, you're right too. Gosh, I can't imagine what other folks are thinking. And you can't in any way, shape, or form be tempted to do that. You have to stick to your guns and stay true to your convictions and be fair, candid, and honest about what everyone is saying. And I find, for me personally, as transparent as possible when there's a difficult issue going on. Well, ladies, and
one more thing.
okay.
Talk about governance, because it is a democratic process. You know, we all have votes. We all don't see eye to eye. Like on the women's basketball, the Child Assembly even went against it based on who we were at Tennessee Tech. But when we voted for it, we all go out and get behind it and endorse it. Okay, that's what the right thing to do is. So talk about that, because we all have that opportunity for input, but it is as easy as it is.
Within our conference, we do have a simple majority. Almost every major issue that impacts you as a student athlete is considered through a committee structure that we have in the OVC. Faculty look at academic issues and forward recommendations, in some instances to the athletics directors, and other instances to the presidents. Coaches offer recommendations that are forwarded to our senior women's administrators who work on behalf of the institution and on your behalf, and those recommendations are considered, thoroughly vetted, sent to the athletics directors, and on some issues they're sent to the president. You'll find very heated debates and very heated discussions, and 99% of the time they are focused on the student-athlete well-being and student-athlete experience to make sure that it's in the best interest of students as we're moving forward relative to the institution. Within the conference office, part of our responsibility is to try to look at the big picture. From an institutional standpoint, it's also a responsibility to think on behalf of the institution, to think on behalf of the student athletes, in this instance for Tennessee Tech, but also to see the big picture for the conference. So there are a variety of different perspectives that are viewed on any issue within the governance process. And so you can get into some heated debates and some wonderful conversations about what's in the best interest of intercollegiate athletics, what's in the best interest of our student athletes. We also have a student athlete advisory committee within the conference, and that student athlete advisory committee meets via teleconference. That's what is it? Once a month? Meets once a month, and also has an in-person meeting. Mr. Wilson serves as the athletics director's liaison to the Student Athlete Advisory Committee. So we try to get your perspective involved in the discussion, but please know that decisions are made with your input, but also on your behalf, and that it takes strong leadership by the folks in the room, having earned trust, having had credibility, knowing the issues, to be able to make decisions and to be impactful on behalf of intercollegiate athletics and impactful on behalf of the Ohio Valley Conference. So it's something that we have going on all the time. We had a conference call earlier this week to deal with governance issues, and it's something that's just constant as we adopt policy within the conference on your behalf, but it really is a matter of having credibility and being a strong leader in order to be able to get ideas articulated and concepts adopted within this governance structure. Well, ladies, I thank you very much for listening. Mark said it better than I could. I really would love to be of assistance to you, and I'm happy to talk to any of you privately. Our staff is also available to serve you. That's our responsibility and role. So if we can be helpful, whether it's feedback with regard to the conference, our championships, or if it's an issue for you personally in your career and a profession, in any way, we'll be happy to interface with you, and I would love to see an opportunity to know you. So thank you.